let's look at the rise, the power, and the shocking collapse of one of the most influential figures in modern music. Sean "Diddy" Combs, once hailed as a visionary mogul of hip-hop, a producer who discovered stars, built empires, and shaped culture. But now, his legacy lies under the rubble of criminal conviction, multiple allegations, and a public reckoning that has shaken the entertainment world to its core. For decades, Diddy stood at the center of mainstream hip-hop and R&B. Through his label, Bad Boy Records, he helped launch and elevate careers of some of the greatest names in music. Artists like Usher, Mary J. Blige, and others rose under his guidance, embodying the sound, swagger, and ambition of a generation. To many, he was mentor, gatekeeper, kingmaker. His reach extended from recording studios to red carpets, from music charts to fashion, business, and global influence. It seemed unstoppable. Yet behind the success and glamour, a different story emerged. One built on allegations of coercion, manipulation, violence, and exploitation hidden behind fame, power, and industry influence. Over time, a small but growing chorus of former associates and survivors began to speak out. They accused Diddy of abusing not just individuals, but the system, using his resources, status, and influence to silence, intimidate, and control. One of the most damning voices belongs to Cassie Ventura. Their relationship started in the mid-2000s. She was only 19 when she first met him. He was the powerful head of Bad Boy, offering her a Dream 10-album deal. What followed, she later alleged, was a decade-long cycle of control, both professional and personal, that spiraled into coercion, violence, and abuse. In November 2023, Cassie filed a lawsuit accusing Diddy of rape, assault, coercion, and trafficking. The next day, perhaps under pressure, perhaps out of fear, the lawsuit was abruptly settled, terms undisclosed, widely criticized as a silencing tactic. Many believed this was the moment the power dynamics of sex, money, and industry protection revealed their darker side. But the settlement did not end the scrutiny. Instead, more accusations surfaced. Other women came forward, describing a pattern of exploitation involving drug-fueled parties, coercion, and manipulation. Some described their lives under Diddy's influence as controlled, their careers, their housing, their livelihood all tethered to his approval. Investigators described these allegations not as isolated incidents, but as part of what prosecutors called a criminal enterprise. The turning point came in September 2024. Federal agents descended on Diddy's luxury homes, carrying out raids that shocked the industry and the public alike. Electronics seized, documents confiscated, evidence collected. The empire began to crack. By early 2025, the case had expanded. Prosecutors filed a superseding indictment with multiple felony charges: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, and counts of transporting individuals across state lines for prostitution. Diddy pleaded not guilty to all charges. His legal team insisted that any intimacy, any group encounters, any drug use had been consensual, part of a private adult lifestyle. But prosecutors painted a different picture, one of manipulation, systematic exploitation, and abuse of power. On April 25, 2025, the court ruled that video footage from a 2016 incident, in which Cassie alleged he physically assaulted her during what she described as a freak-off, could be shown to the jury. That decision sent shockwaves. The footage, reportedly showing assault in a hotel elevator lobby, became central evidence. When the trial began on May 5, 2025, the world watched. Over 7 weeks, more than 30 witnesses testified. Former girlfriends, alleged victims, former employees, security agents, and others, all building a mosaic of accusations that spanned almost 2 decades. They testified about coercive freak-offs, threats, intimidation, blackmail, recorded sex acts, and the systematic use of power to silence and control. Cassie Ventura's testimony was central. Over 4 days, visibly distressed and, at the time, 8.5 months pregnant, she described frequent physical abuse, including dragging, kicking, threats, repeated violence, and what she called forced participation in drug-fueled group sex. She described how Combs allegedly walked her through these scenes like a director, instructing escort partners, filming encounters, and using recordings as leverage. She said the encounters became, in effect, a job, not a choice. Outside the courtroom, public sentiment polarized. Some decried Diddy as a predator using fame and power to exploit women. Others cautioned about the presumption of innocence, pointing to the defense's argument that texts and messages suggested consenting participation. The debate exposed deep fracture lines in how society perceives consent, power imbalance, and accountability among celebrities. Then, on July 2, 2025, the verdict arrived. The jury found Diddy guilty on 2 counts, transportation to engage in prostitution, but acquitted him of the more severe charges of racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. The outcome shocked many. For some, the guilty verdict on even a portion of charges represented a step toward justice. For others, the acquittals on the most serious counts felt like a failure of the system. Diddy's defenders noted the acquittal. His critics emphasized that the guilty verdict still confirmed some wrongdoing. The complexity of the verdict and the ambiguity of justice became part of the larger conversation. In October 2025, sentencing was delivered. Diddy received a sentence of 50 months in federal prison, plus a fine of $500,000 and 5 years of supervised release. He remains in custody. The judge, in her sentencing remarks, underscored the severity of the exploitation, the abuse of power, and the need for accountability, especially when fame and influence are used to harm vulnerable people. In the aftermath, the cultural shockwaves have reverberated far beyond music. Former collaborators and associates, once silent, are coming forward. Documentaries and investigative pieces are scrutinizing not just Diddy, but the ecosystem that allowed alleged abuse to continue for decades under silence, loyalty, and fear. The narrative is no longer just about one man, but about power, privilege, and what happens when celebrity shields abuse. What makes this collapse more painful and more instructive is the contrast: the glamorous public persona, millions of fans, adoring crowds, and behind that, alleged victims, destroyed lives, and decades of secrecy. The people who rose on his label, young, ambitious, hopeful, many now must reconcile their success with their pain. And the industry, once dazzled by wealth and fame, now faces a reckoning. How many more stories like this remain hidden behind the limelight?